Unfortunately, the title is basically the same as everything else she has done. Meghan's moment, we've already seen an article with the same exact title. After years of being subsumed by other people's narratives, the Duchess of Sussex, just Meghan is fine, is ready to author her own next chapter. Is she now? Because we have heard this so many times. We heard it in the Bloomberg interview. We heard it on the Jamie Kern-Lima podcast. We heard it in interviews before that countless times. Meghan is going to own her own story this time. This time is the one time that she's owning her own story. Not any of the other 12 times we heard her say this. No, it's this time. Oh. So it begins setting the scene at an event at the La Brea Tar Pits with a group of girls from a local STEM academy. It is completely unclear why Meghan is approaching this group of girls, if it's something that she paid for and organized, that Archewell funded, if it's something completely unrelated that Meghan was like, oh, I'll stop by and also I'll bring a journalist so that I get better press or something, or look like I'm doing something good. I don't know. There's no explanation. So I do not know the backstory. Forgive me. But a golf cart pulls up, the gravel crunching beneath its tires. The Duchess of Sussex, someone in the scrum announces. See, this is what I'm saying. She's making people announce her and using the title. That is super shady to me. She's not a royal highness anymore. There's no need to use her title. And she is functioning in America. She lives in America. She's doing all of her stuff in America. There is literally no grounds for this. It's kind of shocking to me. Meghan descends. Ah, yes, from way up here down to the plebs. This immediately is making Meghan sound super snooty. Dressed in wide leg trousers, what else? GMPs pulled up to the boobs, I bet. And it goes into Meghan rehashing how she used to live in LA. We know. We've heard it before. Isn't that funny that we've actually already heard these things before? Apparently, Meghan graciously asked one of the children about her nails. She asked another about what she's studying. When a girl mentions her love of languages, Meghan lights up. I'm learning French on Duolingo, she says proudly, adding that she just hit a 90-day streak. Neat. So the Meg is obsessed with talking about herself and taking over a child's opportunity to share, even with children, not just grown-ups. With children, too. She will hijack it. Then they launch into a brief backstory, as if we need to hear it again, of how she had the TIG, and then she met Harry while she was an actor on Suits, and then, voila, she was a royal. We know the story. We were here. Okay. And then they say that, I don't know if this is the author's interpretation of events or something Meghan said. It's unclear, but saying that in Megxit, throughout Megxit, Meghan lost her agency and her humanity. I don't think so. She followed Megxit up with multiple petulant statements to the media, arguing with the Queen of England. We can all lead a life of service, those types of things. Remember that? And then did the Oprah interview and signed all these deals with Netflix and Spotify and stuff. She did not lose any agency or humanity at all. None whatsoever. So I don't know what planet these people are on, but it's not realistic and it's manipulative to the facts. Meghan understands her voice better than any producer could put it out there, says Terry Wood, former executive VP at Harpo. Wood executive produced the Oprah interview with Meghan and Harry after they stepped back from the royal family and worked with Meghan on archetypes. She knows how she comes across and she knows how she wants to connect. She understands that so much has been written about her that when she does something, she wants to break through that noise so people see that she is authentically trying to be herself. Okay. Meghan doesn't actually understand how she comes across. Clearly. Obviously. If she did, she would stop sounding so pretentious all the time, and she would stop lecturing people, and she would stop sharing so much about herself, because there is nothing people want less than to hear more about Meghan as a human from Meghan. Because every time Meghan's talking about herself, she's conveying that that you need to see her exactly how she wants you to see her. Not that you can just make your own judgments, which is what we all do. And it's not natural to just take someone's word for it when they're like, no, I'm not here to do anything weird. Why do you want me to think that you're not here to do anything weird? You're probably trying to do something weird. It just automatically does that to us. So Meghan always trying to push this, I'm so authentic. I know, no. It's just making people think the opposite is true. So Meghan doesn't understand how she comes across at all. If she did, she would change how she presents herself, and what she chooses to do and say in the public view. Then they talk about how she did sign deals with Spotify and Netflix, but neglect to highlight the fact that those have now ended. One of them under really bad terms. Then they go to the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Of course they did. They do point out that it is a calculated choice as the site for her first interview. There is a lot of fluff in this article to just fill it up and make it bigger, I guess. I don't know, but there's just tons of pointless fluff about where they are and the food and what things look like and oh my gosh, this and that, of just where they are or things like that have nothing to do with the Meg, which leads me to conclude that the writer understood that they were never going to get to their word count quota with just what Meghan divulged to her, which was the same stories that they have all heard before. So they had to fill it up with some other stuff. So they just filled it up with fluff about like the day and the environment and the setting, which is unimportant to an interview, quite frankly. But this paragraph I found particularly uncomfortable. How do powerful women flex? Do they lead with deference or dominance? Meghan seems to lead with affability. I'm not sure that that's exactly how people feel. The warmth with which she greets each of these men and with which they reciprocate is genuine. With me, her interviewer, where the power balance shifts back and forth, she is warm and open and she always maintains direct eye contact. Even though the Meg is a wealthy woman and married to a prince, I don't know that I would place her into the category of powerful women. Even though she weaseled her way into the Fortune interview, I have a video with the backstory on how she got there coming out soon, so be sure you subscribe so you do not miss it. I don't think the Meg should be placed into a category of powerful women, especially with how much she has failed to succeed. To me, a powerful woman is successful and inspiring and has a healthy, happy family around her that she manages to spend time with. That to me is a powerful woman because she is able to have balance between success and family and private life and public life and is inspiring just in general. I don't think I would attribute any of those things to Meghan. She talks about how she was a nerd and how her identity was wrapped up in being the smart one. We know, we've heard it, but also I think that was more just her narcissism as it began to bloom, thinking I want to be smarter than everyone else or I am smarter than everyone else. And that's where her narcissism was born. I don't think that she actually was. It's not like she was valedictorian. Meghan claims that she had the personality type of I can help coordinate, I can help organize, I can help facilitate. I think I'm probably the same now. That's just code for bossy. And, you know, a lot of us go through a bossy phase when we're children, but you are supposed to be coached out of being straight up bossy and into understanding what a leader is, which is not just bossing people around, it's connecting with them and also walking the walk so that then they will want to follow you naturally because they can see your success. Meghan does not have success. They bring up the dish soap story again. You see what I mean, you guys? This is all stuff that we've already heard about. They talk about the LA riots. Meghan says that it was cinematic in a way I don't think many people can understand. It was so visual, smoke everywhere, people driving around, blah, 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 blah. She's talking about stuff that she saw during the LA riots, which her father, who had custody of her at the time, says that they were out of town when the LA riots happened. And I think that they were saying Meghan, I think they're saying that Meghan was 11 when the LA riots happened. I'm sure you guys would dispute what age she was when the LA riots occurred. But she says it was scary, but Ellie survived it. It's resilient. And I'm still confused why Meghan's talking about it as if she was there when, according to the adults in her life at the time, she was not in town. So now we have a little bit of a backstory on how Meghan reconnected with Kelly Zafin, I think is how you pronounce her name. They met when they were in their 20s, but now they are have reconnected. In 2022, Meghan reached out after she found out that Kelly's son had passed away, which I could understand reaching out to an old acquaintance, someone you haven't spoken to in many years, during a tragic time to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear this. But at the same time, it feels a little uncomfortable and a little dark that Meghan used that as an opportunity to lure Kelly back into her life and present her as a long-term friend that she's had forever, because that's what benefits Meghan. That is the dark side that is possible. There's a possibility that that is what was going through Meghan's mind, as horrible as that is to think or say. My heart goes out to Kelly for what she has had to go through. But I didn't realize that they hadn't spoken, that Meghan reconnected with Kelly when Kelly's son passed away. Some people could view that as Meghan being opportunistic and perhaps even a little bit manipulative to swoop in during someone's tragic time and benefit from the appearance of having a long-term friend when they hadn't spoken in many, many years. And that's what communal narcissists are like, and what a lot of people think Meghan and Harry kind of show tendencies of that at times. Then they talk about women seeking self-actualization through work. Meghan talks about how she likes the community of work and connection. Meghan says you should do what works for you. Well, unfortunately, most people don't have the luxury of doing what works for them. They have to find a job and work really, really hard to be able to keep their lives afloat and their family afloat. When people start to see your work ethic and really understand how dedicated you are to things, how you are in one place, I believe, is how you are in other places. So for me, that's how I show up when I do potlucks at my kids' school. That's how I show up when putting a party together for my friend who just had a baby. That's how I show up in my business. So Meghan's just talking about herself again and how excellently she shows up. That's for other people to say about you, Meghan, not for you to say about yourself. And it doesn't really tell us much about her work ethic. Ultimately, this also feels like it falls into the category of communal narcissism, of I want to be seen this way. So I go an extra mile when I put together a party or show up at my kid's school or at work. I'm showing up in a specific way so that then I will achieve praise and adoration and status in these groups and in these spaces, and show everybody how much harder I worked on this thing. It's not about that being natural or just wanting to contribute from a genuine place. It's about wanting credit. That's how that reads to me. When they talk about fear of failure or what Meghan has learned from her mistakes, she deadpans. You learn not to do it again. Then she clarifies, if it all goes swimmingly, you don't learn from it. If you don't learn anything, you're not going to grow. I'm a mom with kids at that age where they are constantly learning something new. I can give myself the same grace as a founder. There's no such thing as perfect. I too get to make mistakes. There's also not a lot of fun in trying to be perfect, so why try to do that if you want to have fun? She didn't really answer the question. What have you learned from your mistakes? Has not been answered. Meghan completely deflects, besides saying you learn not to do it again, but not Meghan. Meghan repeats her mistakes a lot, and then she talks about, in general, learning from mistakes, what that means, and gives examples of that with children and stuff, and just talks about, oh yeah, learning and mistakes as a general talking point. She doesn't actually say that what she has learned from her mistakes specifically. A huge missed opportunity. Meghan would show a lot of humility and make herself more likable to actually acknowledge some specific mistakes and some things that she has learned. Even if it was, I learned to be more careful about what I say about people and about family members, because the Oprah interview, that was a mistake, okay? Meghan is wishful thinking that Meghan would ever say the Oprah interview was a mistake, but she needs to say what she learned from her mistakes, not just deflect. So this interviewer talked with Serena and Kelly Zafin. Convenient for Meghan to offer up those two specific associates, people who we already know are currently close with Meghan Markle. Meghan has worked really, really hard to bolster those two friendships. Meghan then says, I don't like things that feel overly realized. If you overwork the dough, it's not going to rise. And sometimes I think the stress that people put on moments, they're so consumed in them that you lose the fun of why you're doing something. Okay, I mean, like, that's a fair point. But one of the complaints about Meghan's products and projects is that they are overworked. And even just these pictures even, and Meghan's posing in these pictures. Meghan in general feels overworked, overthought, and like she's trying too hard. That's how it always feels with Meghan. I ask her if she ever feels the need to compartmentalize the parts of her life, work, and family. And she talks about how her office is right by the kitchen, and she repeats the soundbite of Lily will come and sit on her lap, whether it's about P&L for my brand or about something creative. Meghan is just saying the exact same thing she said before. It makes me not believe it, quite frankly. Be like, this is the story that I'm going to say a few times because I've said it before, so I can repeat this one story. Oh, because that makes it feel not genuine. If you don't have any fresh anecdotes, then it doesn't feel genuine. When I ask what she hopes her kids see when they see her working, she says, I hope they see the value of being brave. They saw it when it was just jam in a pot on the stove bubbling. Well, I guess that was liquid spread, not jam. I don't think having a Netflix series fail and pushing loose spread onto the plebs that they don't want is being brave. Maybe like work ethic or the value of following a passion, if that really is her passion, might have been a better answer here. Then they meet up again a week later in New York on the same day that she did the Project Healthy Minds gala. And they are in a grand brownstone on the Upper East Side that belongs to one of Meghan's friends. The speculation is that it is Blake Lively's place. And that would not be a good association for them to have. But apparently Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have really good security and they live in New York City. So puzzle pieces. I don't know. I understand the speculation here that it might be Blake's house. And the fact that Meghan doesn't want to divulge whose house it is makes it all the more obvious that one of these parties, either Blake or the Meg, doesn't want to be associated with the other because both of them currently have trash reputations. But once again, somebody announces the Meg's title as she enters. Her version of events has now been shared because Pier Paolo gave away his side of the story after Paris Fashion Week. So now the Meg is giving her side. She says that we've known each other for years. He said they've just been texting for a while, which was said in a way that made it sound like Meg texts him. And she says, I was excited for him. I reached out and I said, happy to come and support you. We kept it a secret and it was really fun. So she's trying to save face a little bit and be like, I didn't specifically ask. I said, I'm happy to support you. That doesn't mean she didn't ask beforehand. Pier Paolo made it clear that Meghan asked to come. And there's that word again. I guess fun is what they mean. I love being able to do both, Meghan says, to play in the sandbox with my kids and play in the front row at a fashion show. She wasn't playing in the front row of a fashion show. She was sitting there watching the fashion. And remember, fashion is not funny. And the Meg laughing at the model that fell was super gross. So this was a tacky thing to say, tasteless thing to say. I think the moment you start making all your personal decisions based on external judgment, you lose your authenticity. You would, yes, but also if you're constantly conniving and everything is contrived and manipulated because you're trying to make it seem a certain way, then you're also losing your authenticity. The Meg, I hate to break it to you. Meghan says, I think my boundaries became stronger once I came into the public eye. You find different ways to protect yourself, whether that's self-preservation or it's just growing up. Okay, calm down. The Meg could very easily have protected herself by just learning and accepting more help when she did come into the public eye as she got with Harry. She could have accepted more help and learned more and educated herself more and took it a little slower, but she chose not to. So, I mean, like, own your mistakes. Take things a little slower. This is another paragraph that I found very, very strange. She puts her hand on her heart when she talks about her husband. He loves me so boldly, fully, and he also has a different perspective because he sees media that I wouldn't. No one in the world loves me more than him, so I know he's going to make sure that he has my back. But to not say that she loves him feels weird. This is like the second or third time that she has told us how much Harry loves her. To me, that's not a natural way of talking about your significant other. It's about how much you love them. It's for them to say how much they love you. She could have said, like, he's protective of me and we love each other so much. His playfulness drew me to him and it brought it out in me. And, we have a great balance in our relationship or something like that. But to just go on about how much he loves her. And then this phrase here, he also has a different perspective because he sees media that I wouldn't. What is that supposed to mean? That Harry, is she outing Harry as looking at media that she doesn't? Is Harry the one who scrolls obsessively? I think they both do. That's what I think. Then we have more nonsense, more boring nonsense about Meghan saying that she was an old soul when she was a child and talking about things from childhood, like what she would eat for breakfast and lunch. Why? Who cares? Why waste your time like this? It makes me feel that like Meghan is given these opportunities and this potential is there to actually be interesting, to show your actual personality or talk about the cause-driven work that you claim to care about so much, to offer some degree of like education or inspiration. But instead, we're talking about sandwiches for lunch and being an old soul and repeating stories that we've heard 5 times. Why waste your opportunities and potential? Why? Why is Meghan wasting it? Why is she so self-sabotaging? I really feel that it's because each time she does an interview or a podcast, it gets backlash, it gets criticized, people don't like it, it gets disliked and things like that. And then she sees that and she sees all the negative comments and she thinks in her mind, if I could just do another interview and do it perfectly, I will do it this way. And I'm going to drive home these points and I'm going to retell these stories in this manner, in this new format. And then it will be perfectly how I wanted it to be, because this Jamie Kern Lima podcast didn't give me exactly what I wanted. It wasn't the result I wanted. So I'm going to do the same thing again and try to get a new outcome. It's insanity. But that's what I think is going on here. That's why she's stuck in this loop, because she wants to be seen this way. And to her, she is perfect. And the way that she conveys her story is perfect. Why wouldn't it get a positive reaction? And each time it gets a negative reaction, it makes her want a do-over. And that's why we have so much repetition. That's just my theory. She says that her parenting style is very different from her mother's. She has made it a study using books and apps and diligence that made her an authority within her friend circle. I'm assuming she means about parenting. Serena Williams is talking about how Meghan is teaching her more about parenting, I guess. I think it's always helpful to educate as a parent. I try to do the same. I think that's very helpful. But I don't think it necessarily comes through quite right here. I think it would have been better if Meghan said that her parenting style is different from her mother's and she relies on educating herself on parenting so that she can try to be a good parent, rather than this perspective of she's telling other people about what she learned and influencing them on how they should parent, because that can kind of come off like telling people unsolicited parenting advice, which nobody takes very well. Not that that's what's exactly happening here between her and Serena, but it can come across that way. And once again, this circles back to, with PR, you do have to pay attention to and be careful with how it's going to come across. She says that she spent a lot of time in Pasadena and Altadena, and she talks about her and Harry's terrible decision to go and tour, and she is fluffing herself up here. She says, it was less about just giving someone a handout, but giving it to them with dignity. Can you treat it with the same level of care that you would if you had lost everything? She's trying to make herself sound holier than thou here. The fact that Harry and Meghan didn't actually do anything to help these communities, they didn't donate or help people rebuild their homes or sponsor a handful of people rebuilding their homes or anything of the sort. They just came and did that stupid publicity stunt and pretended to volunteer for a little while, and it got backlash, rightly so. What the hell are Harry and Meghan doing walking over people's burned down homes and property? It was gross. And on top of it, they didn't actually do anything except for Meghan asked her agent to ask Billie Eilish's agent for some merch for somebody. That's all they did. So if she had like helped or sponsored some houses to get rebuilt or something like that, or helped some families, or just like donated a significant amount of money to the recovery efforts, then maybe she would have earned the right to say something like this, but she hasn't. So it just makes it seem pretentious. Then she name drops Gloria Steinem. They point that Meghan seems to enjoy the global celebrity that she is now, thinks she's part of, at least. So when you contrast this with, for example, Cynthia Erivo's cover story here, the pictures are a lot more interesting. They're a lot more playful. They have so much personality. You would not be mistaken about who Cynthia Erivo is as a human being and the playfulness that she has about her looking at these photographs. You would not be mistaken. It's so clear who Cynthia Erivo is. And in these pictures, it just comes through. And her interview is because Wicked is coming to a close. The second one is out, but it's so much more interesting. It pops so much more. And it makes so much more sense for Cynthia to have this interview. The Meg's is boring and bland and has nothing interesting, and it's not even anchored by something big in culture right now with the big project like the Wicked thing. So it was just pointless, repetitive, and nonsensical. It wasn't worth our time, was it? But I hope this video was interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me today. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye.